allow me to thank you first and foremost for your contribution, not only for this latest article, but for always your commitment towards the QuadPara Association and Rolling Inspiration, and your contributions, which is always enlightening us and guiding us, and sometimes, I must say, shocking us.
Okay, I hope they don't shock too much. But yes, no, it's a pleasure. It is a pleasure. We have done this for years, and it has just been a pleasure for the last, I don't even know how many years we've done this, but it's just been a pleasure. The whole Rolling Inspiration has enriched my life in so many ways, and yeah, I feel blessed for that.
Oh, wow, wow, wow! I'm glad that we can have that continued relationship. Yeah. So while we're inspiring each other and, as I say, shocking each other, you know what shocked me personally from your article that you wrote, the last one, is it's not that I do not relate the what happens and amputation and the trauma thereof with as many faces as I've seen. But when I looked at it, I looked at here we have at least 8 or more people specific indicated of who the person is and the age. And I wondered, wow, I wonder what the stats are. I mean, in a month or a year, what is the current stats of people that end up having amputations roughly currently?
That is a difficult question. You know, I can't, you know, we are fortunate to be in a rehabilitation hospital. So, you know, we receive people like we get them. Sometimes we get 5 people a month, sometimes 10, sometimes 1, sometimes nothing. So to answer that question is hard. I don't know how many people around South Africa is being amputated. I can tell you though that the biggest cause is diabetes. But yeah, that is about as clear as I can answer that question.
Wow. Thank you for that answer to that. But as I say, that shocked me. But I'm sure it does not shock the person who ends up that having to deal with an amputation, or where he or she gets the medical opinion or the advice to hear that, listen, to save your life or to improve your chances of a better life going forward, you would have to have an amputation. And I'm sure that is what the shock that you title your article with. Or do you want to take us into why it is the shock, dealing with the shock of amputation?
Yes. Yes, I think, you know, most people think if you get that news, or if you are in an accident and you end up with an amputated limb, that, you know, most people think that, you know, it's one of the worst things that can happen to you. And then a lot of people think, you know, that it's the end of your life. So if you ask a person, what is the worst thing? One of the worst things, you know, death of family members is quite, ranks quite high. And then the loss of a part of your body, that is also, or function of your body. You know, it is the same. If you lose function of the body, or you lose a part of the body. So that ranks among, you know, the highest things that people worry about. And then the first thing that they do think is that, you know, my life is now over. And that is, I think that is the biggest problem that we have to deal with. If we can make them see that once that happens, you know, it is most people are familiar with the stages of grief, losing a limb or losing somebody. Some people even experience the 5 stages of anger if they lose a car. Some people, when they break a nail, you know, they've got stages of anger. So the stages of anger, and everybody knows them. You know, they are denial and the anger. You start bargaining, you are depressed, and then at the end, then there is acceptance. This is these 5 stages of grief has been known for years, although I don't agree that everybody goes through all these stages. Some people never deny anything. Some people never get angry. Some people accept stuff, they never bargain, and some people are never depressed, and some people accept a lot of stuff. But then again, you have people that accept nothing, they are depressed a lot, they never bargain, and they are always angry. So yes, but I think it's an emotional roller coaster that you go through. And
I'm glad that you have given a breakdown of the stages that people go through and the various people also, as you mentioned, that actually skip some of the steps that happens. And I want to have a follow-up question, and that is in terms of the prospect of once you have lost a limb, and there's always that little bit of hope that you can give that person. But we can have a prosthetist, prosthetic limb fit, or that could always be not an alternative. But that can be not dangled as a carrot, but that can be as a solution to the immediate shock that person have. That hope is there. So it's a two-phase question. The prospect of having a prosthetic limb after amputation, I'm sure it adds or does it add to relieve some of the shock stages that the people go through? And then a follow-up question. Let me ask that one first. The prospect of having a prosthetic limb fitted after amputation, does that increase the possibility of avoiding some of the stages or dealing with that shock phase initially?
Yes. So if we can kind of start, and I can say sort of what you have those stages people go through. But in general, and I'm very broad because I know maybe psychologists are listening in here. I must be careful, but yes, in general, the biggest problem that you have if you have an amputation is the mental aspect. If you can sort out the mental aspect, to make the prosthesis is quite easy these days, and with the technology available, and not even expensive technology. With the technology available these days, it is not so hard to make a prosthesis. I also always tell the patient, don't worry about the leg. We will make the leg. You worry about your life. Worry about what you want to do at the end of the year. Worry about where you want to go on holiday. Worry about the stuff you used to worry about. Let me worry about the prosthesis. We will sort that out for you. So don't worry too much about it. And if a patient knows where they are going, then the rehabilitation process has so much more meaning. It is so much easier for them to initiate and to have the mindset, the mind change. If we can change the mind, the quicker we can change the mind. Prosthesis is easy. If we can change the patient's mind, and so they can see that there is life will be a little bit different, but I'm going to still have a very good life. In the morning, I'm going to put on one shoe and one leg, not two shoes, one shoe and one leg. And that is about all. It's going to take me 5 minutes longer to dress. And that is about the worst thing that has happened to me here. Then if we can make them see, then the rehabilitation is so much easier, and it happens quicker, and it's just better.
Wow. Anyway, what I get out of your response there is that we all make the leg, and you worry about where you're going to go with the leg. So that person, that's actually a very good example that you made there. To take away some of the emotional aspect of what the person is dealing with, because it is a form of grief, because that whoever has to have had an amputation has some grief because it was a loss that they had, him or her. And I have a question from Mariska. Before I get to that question, I just want to hear from you. Every amputation, does that equals to a prosthetic limb?
Yes, let me think. You can make a prosthesis for almost every amputation. The more you amputate, of course, the more, unfortunately, some of it gets more expensive, because if you lose a foot, you only need a foot. If you lose a foot and a knee, then you have to buy a foot and a knee. If you lose a foot, a knee, and a hip, then you've got to get all those three things. The same with upper extremity. If you lose a hand, or a hand and an elbow, or a hand and an elbow and a shoulder. But you can probably make a prosthesis for every type of amputation. It gets challenging when stumps are shorter. If you have a very short but there's ways around that too.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Let's just take a step back and go back to the stages of grief. The question that Mariska has asked, on the stages of grief, do you have any advice for someone who gets stuck in one of the stages, for example, anger?
Yeah, that is all right. There's a few things that you can do in all those stages. You can reach out to family. You can reach out to family and friends. People usually, humans are in actual fact amazing, and we see it every day. You know, we see all the doom and gloom and how people are bad, but we see the good side. And reach out to people, because if you ask for help, you usually get it. A bit of exercise helps. In most of it, exercise. It goes beyond them. It moves a little bit away from the mental aspect. You start exercising, but you talk to people that can help you, and you talk to somebody that is in the same position as you. That is somebody that had, for instance, also an amputation. Talk to them, and if possible, try and go back to work as soon as possible. Returning to work will help you to rebuild a purpose of sense and of self-worth and of purpose. So go back to work. Try and pull your life back to where it was, even if you don't have a leg at first. You know, if you have yes, and I actually wrote something down, which let me just see if I can find it quickly. There's many variables, Raven. Many variables. We say there's stages of grief, but why I say it's not different. It's so different for everybody. There's so many variables. Your identity, somebody's identity, is really built around your position in society. So if you have, your position in society is what you are and who you are. This is how you identify. But then there's other variables like your financial position, your family support. And it sounds a little bit strange, but there is definitely a line to be pulled from how you lived, how you perceived the world before the amputation, and how you go from that forward. If you before amputation were very depressed always, then after the amputation you're still going to be a depressed person. If you were a very happy-go-lucky person, most probably you will be, so and that is where you find it that some of the negative effects of your life, you're going to have to counter them a bit, because somehow you're going to have to accept that your life is a little bit different now. I'm going to have to make a change now. But yeah, there's many variables around what shapes the amputation experience.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, and I hope that responds to the question that was asked by Mariska. And Heinrich, I have another question for you, because recently I had a friend of a friend who was reaching out for advice. What do we do now? We have this friend that is so depressed because he had to have his leg amputated. And all that I could do was refer him to Rolling Inspiration. So I took a picture of some of your articles that you wrote and forward them to him, because that is what we can do. That person has also had a complete turnaround in his life, and I am so glad for that, because he actually reached out and went to the center in Cape Town that they do for the people with that needs prosthesis, and he is a new person. Everyone thinks now that he's a new man. However, it was just that little bit of a push, that little bit of hope, that glimmer of hope. And at first, that deep depression that set in, because it was out of that depression that he came. He got the life back in him, and the yearning to go and reach out and get the information and visit the center and have the measurements, and for me that was very, very pleasing to see. Is that a similar story, or do you have many stories of that kind, or do you have a difference?
No, we have many stories like that. I mean, can you see from the article, you also see. Yes, that little bit of information, and I always say that information like that should be free. you shouldn't pay for, somebody just went through one of the worst experiences life can throw at you. And that is why we've written, I don't know how many 100 articles already, or 80 or something, but we've written these articles because via rolling inspiration, we believe that this information and that little bit of help, you might just need that little bit, should be for free. You shouldn't have to pay for that. It just blows my mind that, somebody would charge you to give you, okay, but that's just me, charge you to give you advice like that. So first of all, and then you go ahead, because this is, why we do what we do. If you can give that little bit of help, and then you can start, and then you can move forward. No, this is. I'm glad that you mentioned that. It is good to hear that it helped somebody.
Yes, and sometimes it's an insignificant thing, because I mean it's nothing to share some information with someone, but it's also the person on the receiving end. It's the action from him or her that determines where they're going with or what they're doing with the information that is available. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And Heinrich, I'm sure that our participants are aware that they can ask questions or pose comments if they want to. I do not see anyone having a comment currently. I also have asked a question that I wanted to share with you regarding to the article that you've written. And as I mentioned, the first thing what triggered my interest was the number of people that we have there. And I'm sure that you, in being in the industry, you see many of these cases, and you change many lives, the majority of them for the better. So thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for your contribution towards society and to Rolling Inspiration, and for doing it as a volunteer. We really appreciate that we can have this mutually beneficial relationship where we can have the outlet, Rolling Inspiration, that we can put this information out there. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, if I can give a little bit of advice, it sounds like we are coming to the end. If you give a little bit of advice, if somebody is having an amputation, if they can get introduced to a prosthetist as soon as possible, and if they can meet a fellow amputee as soon as possible, and yes, and if you have a practitioner that do something to the practitioners, speak to the practitioners, have sympathy and listen to your patient. Listen to your patient a little bit. That 5 minutes extra, makes the life of difference. Just that 5 minutes extra to know that this guy's leg is hurting him this morning because his wife is angry at him, or know what is his challenge at home. And it only takes that extra 5 minutes to listen to that amputee. And if you have an amputation, or you're going to have it, and you have information from a prosthetist, and you meet a fellow amputee, then you can see that your life is going to change a little bit, but your place in society is going to be a little bit different. Look at this person. Look at his place in society is different, but he fits in, and he carries on, and he's 100%. And another testimony to the human spirit is I have never I've been practicing for, I think, 18, 20, since the age of 19, I'm almost 50. And I have never seen an amputee that's rehabilitated that meets another amputee that's just been amputated. I've never seen the one give the other bad advice. The first thing they want to tell them, they're going to be okay. They want to tell them because they've been through it themselves. They want to tell them, they want to give them advice. They want to help them. And that is a testimony to the human spirit. And every single time, I have never seen an amputee giving a rehabilitated amputee, giving depressed information to a new amputee. So yes, that is, and so yeah, and then if you can see what your new status in life is going to be, it's going to be a little bit different, but you can see the path ahead. If you know the path ahead, then you know where you are going. Then a lot of these stages of grief are not necessarily part of your rehabilitation plan. You can miss some of these things.
Wow. Heinrich, you actually preempted the question or the comment I wanted to make there. And that was going to be your advice to newly injured persons. And then also you mentioned on the practitioners, because I wanted to end off by telling you that my day started with meeting an exceptional practitioner. And by hearing the experience that she has and the passion that she has towards reaching out to other people. And they have the knowledge and they have the experience of dealing with similar people who were in a similar position before that. And whenever you have a new patient or new person requiring your assistance or advice or your service, and then you start a relationship with that one. And as you mentioned now, that peer-to-peer experience sharing and counseling that, as you mentioned, the person that has had an amputee already and someone that is newly amputated, that is very important. Thank you for preempting that and for giving us that input and that advice, which is life-changing to many people. But thank you very much for your, as I mentioned, for your participation and also for what you contribute freely to Rolling Inspiration and to the community at large.
Absolute pleasure. Just one. No, is our time finished?
No, it's not.
Okay. So yes, one of the things, you have amputees maybe listening, which are older amputees, and they have problems. There's if you're having problems with the prosthesis, usually you're having prosthetics shouldn't be a painful process. There should be no pain involved. So if it's maybe a little bit of initial pressure, but if you have horrible pain and skin breakdown and stuff like that, maybe you should look around a little bit, maybe go for a second opinion. All prosthetics revolve around a residual limb, or ugly word is a stump that fits inside a socket. And if that stump doesn't fit well in that socket, if you're below knee or above knee or below elbow or above elbow, if that hurts you, then you can put on whatever components you like. You can put on 1 million rands of components. That prosthesis is going to be non-functional. So yes, if you can find yourself a practitioner that can make yourself a comfortable socket, a comfortable prosthesis, then that is the first step. And if you're having problems, maybe you should look around a little bit. So that is advice for amputees, because I know there's a lot of older amputees. You always hear about the guy that's got his leg and the leg's hurting him, but prosthesis shouldn't hurt at all.
Oh, that is very, very interesting.